Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Monday, October 27th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 650 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. And it is a Victory Monday. Finally, we get to celebrate a Victory Monday and enjoy a New York Jets win today on the podcast. As today, as I always do, the day after, give you my biggest takeaways from yesterday's game. The New York Jets and Aaron Glenn finally picking up a win in this 2025 season to get to 1-7 on the year before the bye week. And now we get to go into the bye week talking about a win, go into the bye week enjoying a win, as opposed to going into the bye week talking about an 0-8 team, the possibility of this regime being one and done, the possibility of getting the number one overall pick, talking about the draft, all those different things. Instead, we get a Victory Monday. We get a thrilling 39-38 victory to talk about today, and we get to enjoy this one for 2 weeks until the New York Jets take the field back at MetLife Stadium in week number 10 against the Cleveland Browns, where you hope you can continue to see this continue, and you hope that they can build on yesterday's performance moving forward the rest of the way with 9 games to go in the 2025 season. But it feels great to talk about a win. It feels great to enjoy a Victory Monday. And as I always do, want to just dive into all of my biggest takeaways yesterday. Yesterday really, and I talked about it in the post-game pod, and I want to just kind of start again today on it. This whole week has just been crazy from the Jets' perspective. And I think that's what makes yesterday's win so much sweeter, what makes yesterday's win so great, and what makes today, not just that it's the first win, but everything that went into yesterday's win, what makes today, and a feeling that I think all Jet fans have today so great, is everything that went into the game and everything that went into this week. Whether you go back to Woody Johnson's comments during the week, bashing Justin Fields on Tuesday. You then have the whole quarterback controversy after that of whether or not Fields or Tyrod was going to start. You then had the Tyrod injury that kept him out of the game. So Fields was going to start just days after the Woody Johnson comments. The ability for Glenn to get this locker room, to get Justin Fields to block that out, get this locker room to be ready to go despite all of the outside noise, was impressive. The ability for Justin Fields to block out what Woody Johnson said and instead more so use it as motivation and go out there and have a monster game yesterday and lead this Jets team to a 39-38 victory in which they put up over 500 yards of total offense. And then you get the heartbreaking news in the morning with the Nick Mangold passing, a franchise legend, my favorite Jet of all time. And you win that game for him. You pick up a win. You get your first win of the season. Aaron Glenn picks up his first win, and you go into the bye week with good vibes as opposed to the opposite of what we could be feeling today, which would be an 0-8 team still searching for their first win going into the week 9 bye week. So that's just, I think, what makes yesterday's win so great. You win it for Mangold. It was a Mangold miracle, and I want to use that to open up, and then we'll dive into the offense and the defense. The Jets' ability yesterday to continue to come back and claw back and fight and not give up in this game was a really, really promising sign. And I've talked a lot about it in the post-game show, but I want to mention it again. A lot of credit to that goes to Aaron Glenn. And a lot of that shows, whether it's the locker room reaction, whether it's the way this team kept fighting yesterday, all the way until the end and found a way to win. It shows you that Glenn still has this locker room. It shows you that these players still believe in Glenn. And a lot of the risks, a lot of the chances that Glenn took yesterday were risky, but they paid off. They worked out. He was aggressive yesterday, going for it on the 2-point conversions twice, the 2 4th-down conversions. He was aggressive. He went into the game with that mindset. He had this team ready to play. He clicked all the right buttons from an in-game management perspective, which is really, really promising considering some of the issues that he's had this year, some of the issues that this coaching staff has had this year moving forward. And yesterday being an example of that, you want to see more of that from Glenn. But in terms of the comeback, they trailed at various points of this game, 17-3, 24-10, 31-16, and then even at one point late, 38-20 or 38-24, until they ended up scoring, 15 unanswered and went on and picked up the 1-point victory. But on that note, they went into the fourth quarter down 31-16. 23-point went into the fourth quarter rather down 31-16. A 23-point fourth quarter helped them overcome that 15-point deficit. And that is just the second largest fourth quarter comeback in franchise history. The only one larger than yesterday's was the 2000 Monday Night Miracle against the Dolphins, where the Jets came back from down 23 to win that game. Yesterday, down 15, put up 23 points in the fourth quarter, hold Cincy to 7. Was the defense perfect yesterday? No, they were far from perfect. But what did they do? They stepped up when it mattered most. The final 2 drives of the game, they got 2 big stops. They put the offense in a position. The offense had multiple big scoring drives, but the big scoring drive to end it, to put themselves on top, and then you got one more big stop from the defense. You got a sack when you needed it most from Will McDonald on the second to last Bengals drive to set this offense up for success the rest of the way, because the offense yesterday was the rare, very exciting to watch. But that comeback felt like Nick mangled. You win that game for him. It was the mangled miracle. Coming back from that, I think that's a perfect way to put it. And just what makes yesterday's win so much more special is to win it on a day where you lose a franchise legend and somebody that was so great in this Jets community, a great player, as we all know, but an even better person. To go out there and win that game for him and win it in the fashion they did was awesome. Now, in terms of offensively, defensively, as we always do here, break it down, I think we have to start with Justin Fields, right? This was the main story of the week. We'll get into Breece. We'll get into Isaiah Davis. We'll get into the offensive line, which was excellent. But Fields was the big story all week long. You get the Woody Johnson comments on Tuesday. If we could just complete a pass, if we had a quarterback with a better rating, all of those different things. For Fields, who actually opened up a lot on his post-game press conference about what he went through this week, for him to go out there yesterday and deliver the game that he delivered was a really, really impressive feat. And I continue to say this, and I was talking to somebody earlier today about this, whether or not, whatever Fields' future is and whatever the rest of the season, forget about beyond this year. We all know the Jets are going to take a quarterback, but beyond this season, even just whatever happens against Cleveland, whatever the rest of the season is for Justin Fields, yesterday you have to have a ton of respect for him. And you have to give him a ton of credit, because what he went through during the week, what the owner said about him publicly during the week, on top of the fact that he was already benched against Carolina. He's already been struggling. The confidence has already been low. Now you got to, all of that, add Woody's comments to it. Now you've got to go on the road against a Bengals team with all the momentum. I get not a great defense, but still a team on the road, tough place to play, AFC North opponent. To go out there and play the game that he did, massive tip of the cap, and massive respect to Justin Fields for the way he played yesterday. Easily the best game he's played this season since week 1, right? 21 of 32, 65.6% completion percentage, 244 yards, 7.6 yards per completion, a touchdown, no picks. a 99 passer rating, a 67 QBR. He had a .39 EPA, and I'll give you some other numbers. 93.9 PFF grade when he was under pressure, which was not much. He was only pressured 3 times. But on those 3 plays, you saw him handle pressure much better yesterday. The biggest play of them all, I mentioned it in the recap pod, and I'll say it again, the touchdown to Tyler Johnson. He had pressure in his face. He stood up in the pocket, though, and he threw the ball up, a little lob, corner of the end zone, right into the breadbasket of Tyler Johnson for a big touchdown. A perfect pass. Could not put the ball in a better spot, and that was a really, really encouraging sign because he has really struggled with pressure this year. Yesterday, that was not the case. The rare times he was pressured yesterday, the one notable play being the touchdown to Tyler Johnson, he executed it perfectly. He had a 80.8 PFF passing grade, which was the second highest in his last 24 games. The only higher game was week 1. So that just kind of shows you week 1 was arguably his best game of his career. Yesterday was arguably his second best game of his career. And his passing grade when he was under pressure was the best among all quarterbacks this week. So the way he handled that was huge. And the offensive line, which we'll get to here in a second, deserves a ton of credit, but Fields also deserves credit for the way the offensive line played because he got the ball out a lot quicker today. And I want to give him credit for that because oftentimes, and it's all been warranted, we have criticized Fields for not getting the ball out fast enough, right? Whether it's 3.5 seconds, 4 seconds, the debacle against Denver, only one of the sacks that he took did he actually hold on to the football for below league average. All the other sacks he took, one of the sacks he took, he held on to the football for 7 seconds. That's inexcusable. So as much as we criticize him for that, I want to also praise him for the fact that he was able to get the ball out on time yesterday. And I think that is also a big reason why we saw the offensive line have so much success because guys were open. Fields found him. He had confidence. He was stretching the field. 2.92 seconds average time to throw, which is the second lowest he's had this season. He had some big throws on third down. He had the 2 big 2-point conversions, whether it was when he ran it in on his own or finding Isaiah Davis, improvising, moving out of the pocket, finding Isaiah Davis, really nice grab by Isaiah Davis. That was the biggest one of them all because that put them on top. That eventually gave them the 1-point lead. All of those things, Fields deserves a ton of praise. And even more praise when you factor into what he went through from the Carolina game when he got benched all the way until the beginning of yesterday. And I really do think there is part of it that the owner went out and spoke the way he spoke. That might have lit a bit of a fire under Justin Fields. And you wonder if it lit a bit of a fire under this rest of this offense for the way that they went out and played and rallied around each other a little bit. I think you have to take that into consideration. And you also have to give a ton of credit to Tanner Engstrand as well, because his ability to have this run game going the way it went yesterday, his ability to put together an offense that put up over 500 total yards with a quarterback that just got benched a week ago on the road is really, really impressive stuff. And that's promising stuff, not just this year, but moving forward in the future. If he can do this now with no Garrett Wilson, no Josh Reynolds, mind you, a quarterback that got benched, a run game that's been dormant, on the road, 0-7 team that's coming off a big Thursday night victory, to go out there and put up 39 points, 500-plus yards, Tanner Engstrand deserves credit there from that standpoint as well. And I think they got a little bit more creative yesterday too, which I think is another element to why they were able to have so much success on that side of the football. Now, I want to also move on to the run game because the run game yesterday was massive. And I'll start with Breece Hall because he's the number one. And if yesterday was it for Breece Hall as a New York Jet, right? The next time the Jets play, the trade deadline will be over. If yesterday was it for Breece Hall, that was the way to go out. That was an awesome, awesome performance from Breece. 18 carries, 133 yards, 7.4 yards per carry, which actually lines up with Mangold's number of 74, which I think is pretty cool there when you make that connection. You also make the connection of Mason Taylor, whose dad played with Mangold during the 2010 season. You also have the connection of Nick Folk, who was actually teammates with Mangold. He was emotional post-game So a couple more of those nuggets there. 2 touchdowns for Brees rushing. 35 was his longest run of the day. He then also had a passing touchdown, the biggest of the day, to Mason Taylor. And I believe that catch only had an 18% catch probability. Mason Taylor went up, mossed the Bengals defender, went up and got it. So that was really promising out of the rookie tight end. And Brees was perfect. A 1-for-1, 4 yards and a touchdown pass. So Brees' dual threat yesterday was awesome and actually made some history. His 2 rushing touchdowns and his passing touchdown in the fourth quarter was the first non-quarterback to do that since 1950. I'll also throw this, or since 1950, he's the first non-quarterback to do that. And that is 2 rush touchdowns, 1 pass touchdown, all in the fourth quarter. Now, I think this is even more of a crazier stat as well. He is just the 3rd non-quarterback since 1950 to have 2 rush touchdowns and 1 passing touchdown in any quarter. So forget just one quarter. The entire game, pick any quarter. He's just the 3rd one to accomplish that feat. And it hasn't been done in 45 years, which since 1951, I believe. 1979 actually was the last time that it was done. So 45 years ago for Brees Hall to do that. So 45 years, we haven't seen something like that in the NFL. And Brees did that yesterday. So he was huge. And very quietly here, and I mentioned it yesterday in the post-game pod, but despite all of the issues that this offense has had, and despite some of the inconsistencies in the run game, whether you even just look at the last 2 games against Denver and Carolina going into this game where you had no passing threat, Garrett Wilson was out last week, and Fields was struggling, teams were stacking the box, and the offense became way too predictable. Even through all of that, Brees this year has 3 games of over 100 yards, which already triples the amount of games he had last year. The only game he had last year of over 100 rushing yards was the Buffalo game on Monday night right after they fired Saleh. That was it. This season, he's already got 3. Pittsburgh game, the Dallas game, and in the Cincy game. And very quietly, Brees is having a very good season. Really, he is. Very quietly, though, because of how bad the Jets have been, the fact that they're 0-7, the trade conversations. I don't think people have fully looked at Brees' season, I guess, fairly in a way. He's got 117 carries for 581 yards and 2 touchdowns this season. He's averaging 5 yards a carry, which that to me, I think, is also one of the more promising aspects because over the last 3 seasons, all we've seen from Brees is the yards per carry drop. This season, it's back up to 5. And his 581 rushing yards are 6th in the NFL. He's also the 5 yards per carry is 10th in the NFL with running backs or rushers of minimum 75 carries. He's also 2nd and 3rd down run conversion rate, 12th in yards after contact per attempt, 2nd in explosive runs, which are runs of 10 plus yards, and he's 4th in first downs. So very quietly, Brees has been easily entrenched inside the top 10, top 7, some areas inside the top 5 of running backs this season. I mean, the most simple stat of them all, the yards, he's 6th. So inside the top 7, comfortably inside the top 10 this year. And he's on pace for 1,235 yards and 4 touchdowns. That would by far be his best season. It would be the first time that he surpasses 1,235 rushing yards. And I think what would make that so impressive if he did get to that point is all the issues that has taken place with this offense and the quarterback issues and the predictability of this offense with the run game. So I wanted to make note of that too. Not just was Brees great yesterday, but quietly this year, he's had a really, really good season. And you do have to seriously wonder, not just because of yesterday's win, but you do have to seriously wonder whether or not trading Brees Hall is the right decision. You do have to question that. You do have to take that into account because what he's doing this season is putting up really good numbers. And the odds of you moving on from Brees, getting a 4th-round pick, and something that 4th-round pick turning into how Brees is valuable, how much Brees is valuable to this team, you have to kind of weigh that. And you really wonder if it's just smart to keep Brees. Now, I get the whole side of, okay, if you're going to keep him, then you have to keep him in the offseason as well, extend him, tag him. I don't think that's the approach the Jets will take, and I do still think he'll get traded. But there is part of that you wonder. And I get the side of it that's, it's you trade him and you get something for him as opposed to getting nothing for him. But, even with this win, the locker room, Glenn needing to win these games, needing to show more progress the rest of this season, after a game like that and the season that Brees is quietly having, trading him is all of a sudden a move that maybe you don't necessarily make, or a move that isn't as obvious as maybe it once was. So that's where I stand with Brees. Isaiah Davis also had a great day yesterday. That duo was really, really impressive. And Davis got a lot of run, 33 snaps, which was 46% of the offensive snaps. He had 7 carries, 65 yards, 9.3 yards per carry. His longest run of the day was 50 yards. He also had 5 catches on 5 targets, so caught all of his targets for 44 yards, 8.8 yards per target. And on the day, he had 12 total touches for 109 yards, and he averaged 9.1 yards per touch. He had the big 2-point conversion reception when Fields rolled out of the pocket. Isaiah Davis was really, really impressive yesterday, not just from the run game perspective, the big 50-yard run he had, which was the biggest play of the day for the Jets offense, but also from a receiving standpoint. I thought that was a really positive sign. Getting other guys involved without Garrett Wilson, without Josh Reynolds, you need to get creative. You need to find ways to get other guys open. You need to find ways to produce as a passing offense, and they were able to do that. Fields, 9 different guys he got the football to. 9 different guys, spreading the ball around, getting both tight ends involved, getting the tight ends involved on 3rd down. Tyler Johnson stretching the field, found Arian Smith for a big 23-yard gain on the near sideline. Doing those different things is what's going to help you put up points, and a big reason why we saw 39 points yesterday from the offense. And that's another thing, too, that makes yesterday just so impressive. It was purely 39 points from the offense. It wasn't like there was a special teams touchdown or, another blocked field goal return or a kickoff return or a defensive touchdown. All 39 of these points were manufactured from the offense, and that included 502 total yards of offense, which is the first time that the Jets have done that in a game, putting up over 500 total yards since the Mike White game in 2021, which actually also came against the Bengals. I also want to talk about the offensive line too, and then we'll move on to the defensive side of the football. Offensive line yesterday was excellent. And throughout this season, the offensive line, even in some of the really, really bad games for the Jets, has been one of the lone positives, right? I think we can all agree on that. Even in some of the games where Fields was getting sacked a ton, I think if you watch the games, and even if you watch back some of the tape of these games and you see some of the all-22, you could tell a lot of it was Fields holding on to the football for too long. Even in the spurts that Tyrod came in, Tyrod's also known for holding on to the football for too long, and oftentimes that's what's actually gotten him hurt in his career. That's not on the offensive line. But yesterday you saw the offensive line, not only from a pass blocking standpoint, but from a run blocking standpoint, opening up running lanes and protecting Justin Fields at a high level. And that is so huge moving forward, because having a really good offensive line and possibly, eventually having to draft the rookie quarterback, assuming that's right, having to draft a quarterback and having that rookie quarterback come in and already having a foundation up front on the offensive line, having 5 guys that you can rely on, having in a perfect world and what looks like your 2 bookend tackles, that's a really, really positive things. Those are the little details you take away from yesterday that are more than just yesterday's win and more than just the rest of the season. Those are bigger picture things. The offensive line playing really well and getting better as the year goes on, Armand Membu and Olu continuing to look good and getting better as the year goes on, are really promising things that you can really get behind and really have confidence in moving forward, and things that are so important when you do eventually draft that rookie quarterback and you bring him in. Already having an offensive line that can play like this in front of him is massive, and something that in previous quarterbacks the Jets haven't done good enough doing is putting protection in front of them. That's not the case with this offensive line. 3 pressures yesterday allowed, no quarterback hits, no sacks. Perfect day from that standpoint. You look at some of the highlights. Olu, no pressures, no QB hits, no quarterback hurries. He had an 87.8 pass pro effectiveness grade, and his 86.9 PFF pass block grade was the 3rd best in the NFL this week, and the 2nd best of his career. The only week better, you'd have to go back to week 4 against the Dolphins. Armand Membu, your right tackle, the second half of these 2 bookend tackles. No pressures, no hits, no hurries. 84.7 pass pro effectiveness grade and a 69 PFF pass block grade. Also popped off from a run blocking standpoint. Joe Tittman, no pressures, no QB hits, no hurries. 87.8 pass pro effectiveness grade and an 88.3 pass block grade, which was the best in the NFL this week. And when you take a look at Olu and you take a look at Tittman, Olu was 3rd, Tittman was 1st. So that means the New York Jets had 2 of the top 3 pass blocking offensive linemen in week 8 on their offensive line in Joe Tittman and Olu. That's how good those 2 were. That's how good the Jets offensive line was. Some other notes: Josh Myers, 80.2 PFF pass block grade, and John Simpson, a 72.3 PFF pass block grade. All 5 guys stepped up. The rookie in Armand Membu continues to get better. Olu continues to get better. You feel really confident in having your 2 bookend tackles of the future. Those are things that are massive positives, carrying well beyond just this win, well beyond just this season. These are things that are huge to have if you really want this thing to turn around with a rookie quarterback, with a high draft pick, bring them in. That's how you set them up for success. A lot of it starts with a good offensive line. Then you've got to get more weapons, and that's up to Glenn and Muji. They've got to do a better job of that. But having this offensive line in place is massive. Just some other notes from the offensive side of the football that I do want to note. Tyler Johnson had a really strong day yesterday, 3 catches, 64 yards. And I'll say this about Tyler Johnson. He has quietly been good for his role, if that makes sense. And I think, and I'm not just saying this just because, the Jets win. Now let me praise every player. No, I'm not. But let's be honest. What was the expectation this season for Tyler Johnson? It was probably to go out and put up the numbers that he's putting up. He really should be a wide receiver 4, maybe wide receiver 3, but he's more so should be a wide receiver 3 to 4. Yesterday, he was essentially asked to be this team's wide receiver 1. And all season, he's been asked to be more of a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. He's had to play a bigger role than he really should. But for the role that he should be playing and for what the expectation was, I think he's kind of in line. He's had 10 receptions for 187 yards and a touchdown this year. When you look at some of his previous seasons, like last year with the Rams, he finished with 26 receptions for 291 yards. He had 361 year in Tampa, 169 in his rookie year in Tampa as well. He's kind of right on line with where he's been as a receiver. He's going to be in that 260, probably 270 range to end the year. 250, maybe 240. That's kind of where he's been. He's done his job. He hasn't had like killer drop. He's had a couple, but there hasn't been any killer drops or game-changing mistakes. For his role, he's been good. I think, and even Josh Reynolds too. These Josh Reynolds has made the plays he's needed to make. The problem with these players is with the lack of other receivers, they should not be your wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. And that's on the front office and Glenn. They should have made more of those moves. But for the players that they've been, they're kind of in line with, I think, expectations. It's just there should be more guys in front of them. They shouldn't be relying on being your number 2, number 3. I mean, Tyler Johnson essentially was your number 1 yesterday. That's not his fault. That's just not having other pieces, if that makes sense. And I will also say this, Mason Taylor continues to look good and continues to show signs of progress. And I think that's really promising, whether it was the big touchdown yesterday, but 5 catches on the day, 34 yards in the touchdown. Jeremy Ruckert as well. It was only 1 catch, but he had a big 3rd down reception. And he also had one like that against Pittsburgh too, a big 3rd down reception. He had 2 against Pittsburgh on 3rd down. Ruckert quietly has done what you need out of a kind of at a tight end too. And that is, make a couple big 3rd down receptions, not that you're not going to be that much of a factor in the pass game, but when you are, be consistent, be reliable. Mason Taylor continues to get better, and Ruckert quietly has done some good things and deserves a little bit of credit for a couple of the catches that he's made. I'll give him that as well. Now, I want to move on to the defensive side of the football here. And look, there was a lot of things that need to be cleaned up defensively. I'll start with that before I get into some of the positives and some guys in the secondary that have actually done some really good things for this Jets team. They had 16 missed tackles yesterday. That's unacceptable. It's got to be better. The missed tackles continues to be an issue. Jamie Sherwood started the game on the bench, ended up playing. Sherwood has not been good this season. Yesterday as well was not good at all. You look at some of the guys in the secondary, AZ Thomas, Malachi Moore. There was some rookie mistakes there. Malachi Moore and AZ Thomas have both played really, really well and actually had really, really good games against Carolina. But against the Bengals team that features T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, there's going to be mistakes. Malachi Moore, I think, led the team with 3 missed tackles. So he had a little bit of an off day. But that's going to happen. That's a rookie. He's a day 3 pick. He's going to go through growing pains. He's going to have some good weeks like he had against Carolina, and there's going to be mistakes. The biggest mistake was the T. Higgins touchdown, where he dropped down to the route across the middle. AZ Thomas thought he had safety help. Malachi Moore should have been there. AZ Thomas got beat. There was no safety help. T. Higgins with the 44-yard touchdown. Those are just rookie mistakes. Those are just 2 guys that are young going up against one of the top players in the game. It happens. But that's why you play them, so they can learn, so they can get those in-game reps. In-game reps, those situations, learning from those experiences are invaluable for any rookie. And that's why they're out there. That's why it's good to see them out there. And I actually thought AZ Thomas yesterday, for the most part, outside of that one play, which really wasn't his fault, played pretty well. He had a pass defended. And I even think Malachi Moore, too, did some good things. He did have the couple missed tackles and the mistake, but there were some positives in there as well. So you want to see that growth. You want to see them continue to be out there making some plays. There's going to be some mistakes, but it's all the learning process. You rather see that than Tony Adams continuing to struggle, where it's like, why is Tony Adams still on the field? Right? Let's see what these young guys have. Let's see what you have in some of these draft picks here. They got pressure when they needed it, but the pressure still need to get more of that, right? Will McDonald had the big sack on the second to last drive. That's good, but you need more pressure, and you want to get more pressure. And even just looking ahead here a little bit, your clear path to victory against Cleveland is rookie quarterback and Dylan Gabriel. Get pressure. When in doubt, get pressure, especially on a young quarterback that's learning, only a couple games into his NFL career. Rattle him early on the road, get to him. Get in his face, get pressure, hit him, knock him around a little bit. I know we're looking way far ahead, but you want to see some more pressure there. And as I said, I'll give the defense its praise as we kind of move on to the positive elements. I'll give the defense its praise in the fact that they stepped up when they needed to. They got 2 big stops. That did not happen in the Tampa game. They didn't get the stop in the Pittsburgh game. There has been a couple times this year where they've needed to get a big stop and they didn't. And finally, yesterday, they got 2 big stops. So you give them credit for that, because that is something that they haven't done this year. When they've been asked to make the big stop really 2 previous times, they haven't been able to do it. Yesterday, they were asked to do it, and they did. So credit to them. And let's be honest, like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, they kept them in check for the most part. Jamar Chase had 12 receptions for 91 yards. They kept both of them under 100 yards, and T. Higgins was only targeted twice. Yes, the one catch he had was the 44-yard touchdown, but other than that, he shut them down. The Jets shut them down. They contained them for the most part, right? They didn't let Jamar Chase and T. Higgins just completely take over this game. Last week, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase took over the game. The Jets, easily that could have happened. They didn't let it happen. So you do give them credit for that. For the most part, they kept Jamar Chase out of the end zone. Yes, he still had 12 catches, but he was only 7.6 yards per reception. And he only had 91 yards, so he was under 100 a week after making history against Pittsburgh. And T. Higgins, other than the big touchdown, that was it. He was only targeted once other in this game, and it didn't result in a catch. So for the most part, they kept those 2 guys in check. So you give them the praise for that. And I want to talk about 2 guys in the secondary specifically that I think deserve some credit. And I'm going to give some credit here to Darren Muji, Glenn, right? Muji, Glenn's his sidekick, or Muji's Glenn's sidekick, whatever you want to say. I think we have to, when talking about personnel decisions and talking about trades and draft picks, Glenn is going to be still a big talking point because he's the face of this. Muji definitely plays a role, but Glenn's got to approve of it. So I think anytime you talk about trades, draft classes, free agency, Muji and Glenn kind of have to be paired together as a duo on that, because this is Glenn's show, right? So Glenn and Muji, you do have to give them credit for the Jarvis Brownlee trade. They gave up late round pick swaps. They brought in a player that's under control, brought in a young piece, saw something in him, and 4 games in with the Jets, it looks like a really, really good move. Since debuting with the Jets in week 5, which was against the Cowboys, since that game, he has been one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL. And I'll give you some numbers here. He has a 75 PFF grade since that game, which is 10th among qualified cornerbacks during that time, minimum of 130 snaps. His 77.9 overall PFF grade ranks 5th. He has 8 run stops, which ranks 2nd. So the coverage grade, 10th, overall grade, 5th. 8 run stops ranks 2nd. And against the Bengals yesterday, 73.2 overall PFF grade, 7 tackles, 2 passes defended. Something that I really liked about the Brownlee trade and something that we've seen so far is his willingness to tackle. He is not afraid of contact. He is willing to make big contact, willing to get his nose in the play, make a tackle, open field tackling, all those things, hit guys hard, wrap up, finish. He has been a really positive sight from that standpoint of finishing tackles, and also making plays in coverage. Jarvis Brownlee has been flying around. Yesterday, he made the game-winning, he broke up the pass to win the game, right? Making a big play late. Brownlee's been a really, really nice development. He has been a really big positive for this defense, which is a good sign because Michael Carter, you assume, either gets traded or they move on. Brownlee, you really start to feel like he is your future nickel cornerback. And what he's able to do both in coverage and as a tackler has been on full display. That looks like a really, really good trade. The 8 run stops, the pass defended to win the game yesterday, all things that moving forward you hope continue, but a lot of positive signs from that trade so far for Jarvis Brownlee. He has fit right in. He's been a really welcome piece because there's not a lot of players on this defense that kind of have that mindset, have that style of play like Jarvis Brownlee does. This team needs more of that. I'll also throw Brandon Stevens out there. And I can't believe we're sitting here in week 8 actually talking about Brandon Stephens playing well and getting better as the year has gone on. But this is where we are. And you guys know what you're going to get on this podcast. It's honest thoughts. It's things are going good, we're going to praise it. When things are going bad, we're going to be honest. Brandon Stephens, as much as you criticized the move in the offseason, I criticized it. Every Jet fan, I think, criticized it. As much as the first couple of seasons, first couple of games this season, rather, looked awful and the contract looked awful, he has quickly turned it around. And really, of the last 4 to 5 games, Brandon Stephens has started to play really, really well. He's the highest graded cornerback in the NFL since week 4, a minimum of 150 snaps. He's got an 82.2 overall PFF grade during that time, which is the first among 72 qualifiers over the last 5 games. And his 82.9 PFF coverage grade ranks second. Brandon Stephens here quietly has inserted himself as an underrated corner right now in the NFL. And we need to see it the rest of the way. And I know it's hard for Jet fans to grasp the concept of praising Brandon Stephens, not just because of the contract, but the way this season started. I mean, he was awful. I mean, his first impression, his chance to make a big impression on Jet fans for the first time was against the Steelers, and he dropped the interception. That would have sealed the game. The first Brandon Stephens experience in the first couple games of the season was awful. But he has now quickly turned it around. And another thing with Brandon Stephens that's been really positive is his tackling. Not only has he been physical and the effort and has made some plays in coverage, and there's clearly he's getting better in coverage. He's doing things much better in coverage than he has in the past. And you're starting to see some of the flaws that he's had in coverage go away, which you gave credit to the coaching staff for clearly being able to iron some of those things out. But the tackling's been really impressive as well. He's only missed 3 tackles this year. Now, one of them did come yesterday, but prior to that, he went 3 straight games without missing a tackle. Even when he was awful, his tackling was good. The biggest thing was the coverage. Now the coverage is starting to come along. The tackling's been better. He has just a 7.3% missed tackle rate. A lot of good stuff from Brandon Stephens. Sauce, before the injury, started to play better. Very quietly, the Jets have had 3 top 10 corners in the last couple of weeks. And moving forward, if this continues, you start to build more confidence about the Brandon Stephens contract, the Jarvis Brownlee trade, about this trio being this corner, being this with this team now moving forward and being the anchor of that secondary. Sauce as your CB1, Stephens as your CB2, and Jarvis Brownlee in the nickel, which clearly right now is an upgrade over Michael Carter, who I believe either is going to get traded or he won't be here next year. They can get out of that contract. And just flat out, even with Michael Carter being hurt, but even when he's healthy, Jarvis Brownlee Jr. is better by a lot than Michael Carter. And I'll just close this out with one more thing. And I do want to maybe do another episode, more deep dive into this, but enjoy this win, Jets fans. Because I know there is a portion of this fan base that's all upset that, oh, they won a game, the tank is ruined. It's one game. There are still 8 more games left in this season, or 9 more games rather left in this season. The Jets were not going to go 0-17. They were not. It was not going to happen. The percentage of teams going 0-17 are very, very low. And what makes yesterday's win actually significantly better than if this win would have come when the team was 0-13 or 0-14 is the fact that there's still a lot of time left in this season for them to build on this, right? It's only one win, and they have to build on this. Let me make that abundantly clear. They have to build on this. If they go out against Cleveland at home and lay a stinker and fall to 1-8 and look terrible, and it's like a 20-6 game or something like that, and they look awful and they regress to the norm, that's where you start to, okay, we're back to being concerned with this staff because now you can't, they've got to build on this. I want to make that clear. They have to build on this. This one win does not all of a sudden mean, oh, Glenn's the guy, everything's perfect in the world. No, they're still 1-7, but they have 9 games to go and you want to see progress. And your hope is that they could continue to show progress, beat Cleveland, make it 2 in a row. My message to Aaron Glenn would be do something that Saleh could never do. Win a game coming out of a bye week. Win a game with extra time to prepare. I think the only time Saleh won a game coming out of a bye week, because he didn't get the chance to do that last year, but even coming out of the bye week last year, I think they had that. It was the Seattle game, and they lost that game anyway. Win a game coming out of the bye week. The only time they did that, I believe, was 2023, where they got bailed out by Tommy DeVito and Brian Dable, not allowing him to throw the football. They ended up winning that game against the Giants to get to 4-3 before the season collapsed, and the whole Zach Wilson run of finding ways to win with him was over. But anytime Saleh had extra time to prepare, it never worked. Anytime they came off of bye weeks, they were always slow. They were always sluggish. So this is a big test for Glenn coming out of the bye week. You got a home game against a team that's 2-6, a winnable opponent, coming off of a really, really good victory. And a team that's also coming off of a bye week, because Cleveland will be on the bye week this week. So two teams with extra time to prepare. That's going to be a big teller for this coaching staff, a big challenge for this coaching staff, a big test for them. Go out there and win that game, or else this doesn't mean anything. I get that. But to be miserable, to be, oh, the tank is over, like that's just, look, winning, you need to win. Glenn needs to win. This coaching staff needs to win. This organization needs to win. You can still get a good quarterback and win games at the same time. At the end of the day, what ultimately matters is not so much where you're picking, it's who's making the pick for you. And it's what quarterback you take and your evaluation process of that quarterback. Because when you actually look at the previous draft classes, the number one overall pick, the first quarterback taken, has not been the best of those classes. Just take a look at some of the recent ones. Caleb Williams in 2024, he's not the best quarterback out of the class. In fact, he's probably the third. Jaden Daniels and Drake May are better. They were not taken number one overall. You look at Bryce Young in 2023, CJ Stroud was better. How many Texans fans were so upset when they had that Hail Mary to blow the tank, to win the game, and it ended up landing them CJ Stroud? And look what Stroud's done. He's significantly better than Bryce Young. You go back to 2018. While Baker Mayfield has now found it, Josh Allen, who was quarterback 3, and Lamar Jackson, who was QB5 in that draft, were better. And I get it, Mayfield and Darnold figured it out now, but Lamar and Allen are still better, and they've been better. Josh Rosen was taken before Lamar Jackson. Think about that for a second. It's not so much where you pick, it's who's picking it, it's your evaluation. That's what separates good run teams and the poorly run teams, is you don't always need a high draft pick to find the quarterback. It's making sure it's getting the right quarterback. It's doing the scouting. It's picking out your guy, and more importantly, putting him in the right situation and coaching him up. 2017, same thing. Mitch Trubisky was taken over Patrick Mahomes. You even want to throw 2021 in there, right? When the Jets when they were tanking, and a lot of fans were on board with that at the time. As much as Trevor Lawrence is the best quarterback in that class, because that class is historically bad, even Trevor Lawrence has not lived up to the number one billing. So the whole tank crowd, enjoy the win. Enjoy the win. A win was going to come. They were not going to go 0-17. They were going to win a game. And you've got to now hope that they can build on this. And it's not so much where you're picking, it's making sure you find the right player, the right quarterback, and developing him the right way, no matter where that pick is, no matter what quarterback that is. It's finding the right one. And who's to say, and I still think this team will still probably end up with a top 3, top 4 pick. Let's not say they're going to go win 9 more games in a row now and finish 10-7. No, that's not happening. But even if they win 2 more games, 3 more games, they're still going to be slotted comfortably inside the top 5, near the top 3. And even in the event of maybe they win more games than we expect, maybe they end up finishing with 5 to 6 wins this year, as opposed to the 2 to 3 that I think a lot of us started to expect as this season played out. Who's to say you can't trade up? The Bills made the playoffs. I always go back to it. The Bills made the playoffs the year before they took Josh Allen. They made the playoffs. They traded up, got Josh Allen. It can be done. You got to get creative. So that's my lasting message. that'll do it. Another episode in the books. Appreciate you all, as always, for joining me. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. What are your biggest takeaways from yesterday's win? We'll be back. A lot more content coming your way the rest of the week. Enjoy the rest of your Victory Monday. Enjoy a victory on the bye week. Appreciate you all, as always. Until next time, JETS. Jets, Jets, Jets.